Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's the Full 40 with Chris and Rob, part of the Stay Tuned Network, brought to you by Nova Insider. We are back after a massive comeback victory for Villanova. Left for Dead comes back to life, resurrects in time for Christmas. Couldn't write it better. Rob, what are you drinking tonight?
That's a great intro. Unfortunately, it's not Easter, so the resurrection connection falls a little bit flat for me, but I see where you're going and I like it. I'm excited. I am drinking my typical Woodford Reserve tonight. I'm obviously excited about the win. I'm more excited about the guest that we have on. Always great to have him on the pod. Been on a couple of times now. Why don't I let you do the intro, Chris? I know you got it teed up.
Yeah, so I'm drinking Bud Light. But I'll intro the guest. I don't deserve to drink more whiskey. I had too much already during the game. I'm introing the guest, John Fanta, a legend. The legend himself.
He's back from
John Fanta is back on the Full 40 with us. John, I understand you don't have a drink tonight, but it doesn't matter. You're here to have a good time. Am I right?
I am currently drinking the reports of Villanova's demise were greatly exaggerated Kool-Aid.
I like it.
And Rob, and it tastes very good, and it should taste very good on the main line tonight because as we record this podcast, Villanova backs against the wall, gut check time, all the cliches of, hey, pressure's on you, it's time to show it. Look, they are an unbeatable train at the Finneran Pavilion, in league play especially.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the Villanova Wildcats have only lost one game at the Finn since Big East reconfiguration in 2013. That game coming to Butler in 2017. The 71-58 win over a quality Xaiver team, a top 20 ranked Xaiver team, a Xaiver team that only had one loss. For Villanova's defense to hold Xaiver to 22nd half points speaks volumes about a program with their backs against the wall. You need a win, and they find a way to get it. That as much as Wildcat fans out there might get a little bit upset or might be disgruntled at the start of this season, I get it. I get it because of your high standards, and you should have high standards. That's being a follower. By the same token, tonight was a reminder. It ain't so bad. It ain't so bad. You still own the Big East until someone fully takes it from you. Now, you start 0-2 in Big East play, and we got to start having a conversation. This was a win that Villanova needed to have. They got it, and they got it because they defended, and they said, you know what? We're not hitting perimeter shots. Fine. We've got to take the basketball to the cup. They did that in this game.
Yeah, they did that, and they defended the shit out of it in the second half. I think a lot of that had to do with Caleb Daniels, but Rob, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, John, I have to admit, I am one of the Villanova fans. I was literally texting this group at halftime saying, we look terrible. I think we're going to lose. I saw this team first half came out with no energy. It seemed like we were the same listless team that we were against Creighton and were against Baylor. I said, oh gosh, we're just pulling this into the pavilion now. It's going to continue. But the second half was totally different. And like you hit the nail on the head, the defense, I will say the past few games, the defense has been one of the somewhat consistent positive themes. It got the job done. I'm happy as always to eat my words and see what the second half brought. So I'm definitely in a better mood for sure. Chris, go ahead.
John, we brought you in. I love it. We're just jumping right in here. We brought you in. Analyze Villanova, analyze the Big East, etc. This is all the things that we want to talk about with you. But I'm going to take it a massive step back. We got to take a way step back. We got to talk about John Fanta for a second here. Here's a guy who was on the Athletic, which is no slouch organization, right? On the Athletic, rated top 40 for college basketball under 40. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's not a good enough ranking for you. because you are like, in my mind, like the next Bill Raftery of Big East and college basketball in general. Just like incredible enthusiasm, etc. So congratulations on that honor. But I want to talk to you a little bit about it. What it meant to you to see your name appear on that list.
Well, extremely humbling, Chris and Robin. Thank you for that. It means the world, and you never do this type of stuff. You never go into your job day in and day out saying, let's do it for this type of recognition. You do it for the people that follow you. You do it for people like yourselves. You know, you guys have had me on your show from its infancy, and it's always been a pleasure to be on with you. And that's what I love about covering the Big East and covering college basketball. The level of passion that the fan bases have for a sport that probably doesn't get covered the way it used to get covered. It's clear to me there's still a neighborhood. There's still room for it to get a lot of coverage. And it's a labor of love for me. And to get recognized by Seth Davis when he texted me, I've never met Seth. We met once actually recently. I had not met him before he was putting this list together. And it was really a humbling thing to hear from him, because he had seen my work from afar, and he explained this to me once we had started talking. But he said it said that much more to me when I was putting it out there of, hey, who should win this accolade, or who should be on this list? And it was fans and followers who were submitting my name, and it was an overwhelming amount of response. That's extremely humbling, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And you only hope for something like that. You never plan, or you never even think about this type of stuff when you're in your day-by-day grind. But it is really, really special. And to be on the 40 under 40, you know, I would have taken 70 under 70 or 60 under 60, 40 under 40 at 26. I'm blessed. I'm lucky to cover the best basketball conference in America.
Damn straight.
And I'm lucky to interact with people like yourselves, because it is damn fun. And I cannot wait for what the road holds down the future.
John, the best part about it, honestly, is that you've always given time to people like us. Like, look, we're not gonna split it. We do pretty good in the Villanova sphere of a podcast world, right? Like we do pretty good. We have a decent reach, right? But like, you come on and you give us everything you got, and that's you, that you bring you just bring seemingly a bottomless pit of energy to everything that you do. And I respect you for it. And not only do I respect you for it, I admire you. I admire it. It's incredible what you bring to college basketball. It adds value to my viewership and fan experience. I really mean that. Like, it's awesome. And to the point on the Big East, like, you've signed up for a great conference with really, really good fans, who give a whole hell of a lot of shit. And that added, and UConn coming in added to it. When you think of like the @No Escalators account, like you think of all the people who come in, and then you think of all the individual groups of fans and groups of personalities in the Big East. It's great.
You got to bring your A game. Look, these are A game fan bases. You got to bring that. And that's who I do it for. And I appreciate it when people are like, I enjoy listening, or I enjoy watching your work. At the end of the day, I want you to enjoy it. I mean, we get to cover these players and these coaches. They're people too. And when I get to talk to them, I want to treat them as such. Relationships are so important. But if you can't bring your A game, if you can't bring your passion, then why do it?
Right.
Then why do it? I've never taken a day for granted in this. I never will.
It's very clear. Very clear.
One thing a lot of people that are in our industry that from a young age, they'll say is, what's my next step? Where am I going next? What am I thinking next? Where am I heading? What's the next job? How do I parlay this into what's next? For me, of course, I always think about what's the future hold and how do I work towards that? But by the same token, if you make the very most of the now, what's in store for tomorrow and in the future weeks and future months and future years to come, that will be telling if you put the work in, because it will get recognized at some point by the right person. And for me, I've stuck with it. I haven't left for something else or entertained that much other things. And I've enjoyed covering the Big East Conference, so much so now that as I talk with you guys right now, I'm covering a game that probably at the beginning of the season people didn't think as highly of as they think of now. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it gets played. I'm doing play-by-play next week when number 15 Seton Hall visits number 22 Providence.
It's awesome.
And that's a product of, that's a game that a Tim Brando or a Joe Davis or a Gus Johnson has called top 25 matchup, and I get the opportunity to call that. That's just put the work in each day, and when you least expect it, your number will get called. And when they call your number, it might not even be for a game that they thought at the time was the biggest game of them all, but treat every game the same. Treat every interview the same. So I love coming on with you guys. You guys have a great following, and it's the place to be for a Villanova fan. But beyond that here, in the Big East Conference, what I like about this league is you have informed fan bases. A Marquette fan who listens to this, or a Georgetown fan who listens to this, or a UConn fan, believe it or not, to the Husky haters out there on social media, that'll check this out and say, hey, I learned something from this. Great fans, really, really good people. It's a privilege to cover this league, and it's always fun to be with you guys.
Awesome. I love it, John, and congratulations once again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Congratulations once again.
Some bonus professional advice too on the everything John said. I was like, I'm not in, like, I've only realized this recently, and I know I'm several years older than John, so he's thinking on the right track. But anyway,
I can never get the facial hair that you have, Rob.
No, you have no idea how hard he worked for that facial hair.
I work a lot.
Recently, sorry, I'm going to distract from the podcast here. Recently,
it's fair.
He went to his barber to get a trim up of his beard, and the barber shaved up. You understand? He's got some patchiness here. He's got some patchiness going on. And boom, the barber shaved up. Wrong direction. Shouldn't be doing that.
Bad.
Shouldn't be doing that. Boom, patchy spot. Guess what Rob needed to be? The best man at a wedding the week after.
Rob was 4 days after that.
Rob was
it's not good. My wife put up with a lot that week.
He appreciates that compliment.
I appreciate that. You appreciate it, Rob. I appreciate that. Good vibes here on the Full 40.
I love it.
I love it. All right.
Should we talk some basketball?
Let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit basketball. I want to talk Big East. So we got John to bring in talk about the Big East. So let's do it. Before we dig into actual games, I want to ask you, has there been any news coming out? Have you heard anything? Does the Big East intend? I know DePaul put out a statement looking to challenge. Has there been any plan, and a little context here, is that Big East teams are required at this juncture, this moment, to quote unquote forfeit and lose a game if they have to back out for COVID reasons? Have you heard any noise that the Big East plans to change that, akin to how the Big 12 announced today that they were going to change it?
Well, let's look at it this way, gentlemen. When you're talking about a league that does pride itself and has prided itself for a long time on integrity of the game, they're going to do everything possible to make sure that they get whatever they need to right. Okay. And so by that account, there are discussions, there are conversations, there are talks being had daily, on a daily basis. And I do think that with the way the trends have aligned, we're going to see some sort of a shift. That's my opinion. But they're going to figure this out. And I also think that it's very important that this gets brought up. Mm-hmm. It's not as simple as DePaul's athletic director, Dwayne Peavy, who's done a nice job there, taking over that job. You can already see some of the changes that are being made. He puts out a tweet saying that he'd like to get these forfeits rescinded. Well, let's look at this policy for a moment. When this policy was put in place,
different situation.
It's a totally different situation.
Totally different situation.
Different situation. So in other words, there's an untimeliness to everything right now, whether it's in college sports, pro sports, whatever. And when there's an untimeliness to your protocols and your guidelines, you are at risk of destroying some of the integrity of your season. So I do think that there's discussions. They're happening daily. I do think we'll see some sort of a shift. That's my opinion. But I also think that it's not as simple as Val Ackerman, the commissioner of the Big East, sitting in her office saying, here's what we're doing. That's it. We're changing it. People need to understand this. The policies that we're speaking of are voted upon by the athletic directors and presidents at the 11 Big East institutions. This is not put into action by the conference office. It's voted on and approved and discussed to begin with by the schools themselves.
Right.
And so because DePaul's AD says one thing, another AD may be saying another thing, and a third AD might be saying, my school hasn't been impacted by this. Why am I having to do this, that, and that? So the point is, there's a lot of parties here in place. And I do think that we will see some sort of a shift. I for one, think it's necessary. I don't make those decisions beyond my pay grade, but let's bear in mind, this is not just a simple one or two people in an office making the decision. This gets brought to the attention of the athletic directors and will be brought to the attention of them again. It's already been. So it's going to continue to get brought up. I do think we'll see some sort of a shift. But to those who are saying, make the change happen, this is bull. That's our world has shown us in the last 2 years that to get the wheels turning on a lot of stuff is not easy. Example, getting people tested for this virus right now on a very different level, and a very more meaningful level. It's hard to get a test right now, as we've talked about. So I think we'll see some sort of a shift. Discussions are happening daily. Nobody's sitting in an office happy with forfeits.
No.
There's no so let's give this a chance. Let's see what plays out here in the next couple of days.
That's a really good point. I hadn't even conceptualized that. Of course, you've got to convince all of the schools and all of the ADs to come along with this too.
You do, and you also have to understand that to that point, Rob, every school's in a different place with this right now. And so Villanova's played 2 conference games. They're on their schedule. DePaul's not, but what happens there? So there's got to be some balance achieved. And I do think that we'll see some of that. When you have more forfeitures than games being played, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's the elephant in the room.
Yeah. I mean, look, to your point, when this came out, I think the thought around it was, and this whole situation has changed in the last 5 months. I don't want to go too far down the epidemic conversation, or the pandemic conversation, but when this came out, there was a thought that hey, everyone gets vaccinated, you're not going to have cases, right? Delta and Omicron have changed the conversation meaningfully, in such that you can have cases now. It's still more rare, but it still can happen. Yeah. So now you have fully vaccinated and boosted players,
yes,
who have gotten and contracted and tested positive for COVID, and now teams have to forfeit as a result of that happening. That was not the original intent, I don't believe, of coming out with that. And so I believe that teams, I agree with you. I think they'll get this right. I just think that it's going to take a little bit of time to work it out, but it doesn't matter. If they come out to a thing and it applies retroactively, it is what it is.
Yeah, and people also have to understand that, and I know they don't want to hear this, but I'm trying to explain the process. There's a lot of lawyers involved here.
I believe it. I can't even fathom that.
You have to. There's a lot of factors at play. You guys know this. The people listening to this podcast, those smart Villanova fans with those Villanova degrees who are in the workplace, know this. You know that if there's ever any shift in your office place, a significant one at that, even in these times, it doesn't happen instantly.
No.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Understand that it's not like your social media is the proponent in now the change is going to happen. Even though I recognize it and see it and appreciate the passion, everybody wants to get this right. I hate that.
John, are you saying our Twitter activism is not going to change? It's not going to flip the switch immediately? Oh, crush.
No, I think though that sometimes I think as a fan, sometimes people think to themselves, look, like this is ridiculous. And right now, the current times, it's beyond anything we could have seen. So here's to hoping that things adapt and adapt quickly.
Totally.
Love it. Okay. We got some of the Big East questions out of the way. Let's talk Villanova and let's talk the Big East basketball programs, the competition that Villanova will face throughout the season. Yeah. So as we sit here tonight, it's Tuesday, December 21st, following Villanova's win at home versus Xaiver. Let's start with Villanova and build out from there.
Sure.
John, Villanova, just to kind of put it all into perspective, set out on a gauntlet of a non-conference schedule. Yeah. They have Temple is a little bit later this week, but have ran through their Big Five schedule. Mm-hmm. They won a game versus Tennessee handily, which will pay dividends later in the year. But other than that, the three marquee games that were kind of put on the schedule, they all lost. Yeah. In different degrees. They had a double-digit lead versus UCLA and lost in overtime. They had a double-digit lead versus Purdue and lost pretty significantly by the end of that game. And then they got blown out by Baylor. Right. I think the Villanova fan base could have accepted those results broadly. I think the Creighton result kind of really sent people into a tailspin. And then the first half of the Xaiver game was like, oh my God, what is going on here? And then boom, we go on basically a 41-20, I think, second half to kind of ease those concerns and tamp that down. But what do you make of Villanova kind of coming off of now 8-4 and coming out of this non-conference and early conference schedule here?
Well, I think that this is a good to very good basketball team. I don't think that this is the national championship caliber team that we thought that they would be in the preseason. That is not to say that things can't change. A team picks up steam, and they can, and this team still can. I think we need to keep in mind that Colin Gillespie was coming off an MCL injury that was rough, and I think that it's shown this season. Colin Gillespie's done a couple of things that even have made me say, that's not the best I've ever seen him, or that's not the best I've seen him. And I think late in games, you're seeing that, guys. Late in games, you're seeing the after effects of this injury. And the fact is they don't have someone behind him at the number one position that's giving them anything close to what he gives them. So there's a lot of pressure that he can handle, but often injury, that's difficult. What I look at with this team is plain and simple. The other super senior on this team has to get going. Mm-hmm. And the fact is Jermaine Samuels cannot stay 2 for 7 from the field against Xaiver. He's not going to be that in February. You just know it. We all know it. But having said that, has that been a reason for losses? Yes. His inability to hit perimeter shots has been tough and has been difficult for them to overcome because this Villanova team does not have much depth. Beyond Caleb Daniels off the bench, there's not a lot that you can count on. And when you don't have a lot of depth, if you don't have a lot of depth, you got to make up for it with professional players. They don't have an NBA player on this roster as it currently stands. Jay Wright told me back in October that it was going to be important for them to achieve some level of depth, knowing that they maybe didn't have that alpha Jeremiah Robinson Earl. The fact is, to this point, they haven't achieved much of it. They also haven't had many chances to achieve it because they've played a next to impossible schedule to this point. So for me, it's a shot-making machine of a team. The machine was broken in Omaha. It was broken against Syracuse. And it was even broken for the first 20 minutes of Xaiver. It couldn't stay broken for the final 20 minutes of Xaiver. Just by default, the machine has to start working again. They cleaned it up, and they gave it some oil, and that car started motoring again. But they defended. And that was the biggest thing. And I think to Villanova fans, what made Villanova fans upset is, hey, we're sitting here. It looks like Creighton wants it more. When is that ever the case? When are they ever a step ahead of us? And so
Absolutely.
I get that. I think that this team is still a team that's going to finish top 2. Like, they're not finishing 3rd or 4th or 5th in the Big East. I'll believe it when I freaking see it. I will say that till I'm blue in the face. Like, tell me when that happens. Tell me when they take a real fall from grace. There's going to be more of a race this year. They need Jermaine Samuels to get going. Justin Moore gives them something strong. Brandon Slater's taking the next step. Maybe the biggest positive, Eric Dixon.
Yep.
Yeah,
Eric
that's great.
I love Eric Dixon. I think Eric Dixon is a great example of Jay Wright and his staff's ability to develop. And I also think he might be the most improved player in the Big East Conference. Imagine Dixon if Samuel starts to hit some shots. And guys, if we had to bet on it, we're all going to bet that Jermaine Samuels is going to start to hit some shots. Villanova will be okay. They need the Temple game. They need that game. Like, a lot of fans might say they don't need that game. Yes, you do. You need that game to figure some stuff out yourselves. Then when you jump into Seton Hall on Jam 1, you're ready to go for that test. Wildcats are going to be fun.
Yeah. Look, we said this. We had a conversation recently. It was actually just like a Twitter Spaces conversation, and with a bunch of fans, very interactive, etc.
Yeah.
And it was after the Creighton game, and everyone's licking their wounds. And you say, okay, you beat Xaiver, ranked team at home, good. You get Wright versus Temple. Agree. Temple's had a very interesting start of their season. There is some potential there, but there's not. They're not.
They lost their best. They lost their best players.
They lost their best player. They're not a high level team, and we have a great chance at the Pavilion to do some damage and kind of get our heads right. You win a game in Newark versus Seton Hall, and I know, John, you're a Seton Hall grad, but you win that game there.
That's huge. That would be huge.
That's a statement victory, and all of a sudden now you got a schedule and you move on, and like, okay, you put the rearview mirror on, a new year, new resolution, so to speak, and you move forward from there.
Yeah.
Now, do you need to win that Seton Hall game if you win? No, you don't need to win in Newark versus an excellent Seton Hall team, extremely balanced Seton Hall team. No, and very few teams have of late. So you don't need to have that game, but that would be the statement victory of Villanova's season to date, if they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, look, it would be, but you got to take it certainly a game at a time. I think that this team has a lot of room that they could get better at. But I think that Jermaine Samuels is the biggest proponent. My big picture concern is when they go up against top guns, the one thing about them is they have to beat you a certain way. You know, there's probably not 5 or 6 different ways that this particular Nova team is going to beat you. They got to beat you with inside out, driving kick action. Their defense has taken some steps. Like, that was a big step against Xaiver, because I thought at halftime Xaiver was getting whatever it wanted. Everyone's like, well, Xaiver made their first 6 threes, then they missed their final 17 attempts. Yeah, but Xaiver was getting open looks in the first half, and Villanova was giving them up. So for me, I think that Villanova is a team that's very good, that ends up being a top 15-ish team heading into the postseason, maybe top 12. I don't know, though, big picture about them being that team that makes the Elite 8 or something like that, because I just don't know if they have enough ways on offense in which they can beat you. And there's such an unknown after Daniels on the roster.
Yeah.
It's so hard to go 6 deep. Like, you got to be able to have 8. And when you have 6 and none of them are a pro, it becomes really difficult.
In my view, you need to have, I agree with everything you said. You need to have Slater needs to be consistent. Samuels needs to be consistent. Oof. Samuels needs to be consistent.
Samuels has to be consistent. You're a super senior.
Yeah, right.
It's time.
Right.
It's time.
Now, I love the aggressiveness that, more typically brings, I think he had a couple games where he was a little bit off for some reason. I couldn't figure out why, but it more typically brings aggressiveness. Eric Dixon has been forcing the issue, to your point. And then candidly, to me, in the Xavier game tonight, I thought Caleb Daniels was the difference. And we do a couple of things here on the full 40, John, and we're going to let you take part in it. We'll let you take part in it. We give out 3 awards a week. You're not going to want to take part in one of them because one of them is a little bit more on the negative side.
Okay, go ahead.
On the positive side, we award the Shaq Fit Man Play of the Week. So a very specific individual play that was crucial, that showed athleticism and just manhood in general.
Named after Villanova's strength and conditioning coach, John Shackleton.
Yeah.
I know the play right now.
Yeah. And I think we're all going to say the same one, but we'll move on. I just want to introduce all of the awards. We do the Alpha Dog of the Week, which is the best player of the week. So we have that. And then we have it originated because one time coming into a TV timeout, Jay Wright yelled at Justin Moore, "Pass the fucking ball." And you could see it clear as day in there. So we have the Pass the fucking ball award of the week as well. I guess that you're not going to want to take part in that one, which is fine. But we'll do the first 2 here. So the Shaq Fit Man Play of the week, in my mind, was Caleb Daniels' drive to the cup and dunk to finish the first half. Because I thought that was a late statement that kind of set the tone for the second half.
It was. That is the play of the week. That's the play of the game and the win over Xavier. And I also thought that was a possession where Villanova had to get something, and they get it in emphatic fashion to go to the hole and make that happen. Daniels really ignited the building. A night where the students are not on campus, you gotta get them fired up with something, And I thought that did. I also thought Eric Dixon got down to the hardwood at one point in this game, getting after a loose ball. And those types of little things, that's what Villanova's about. So for me, Caleb Daniels would get the play and the Alpha award because he struck Alpha into the game off the bench. Mm-hmm. But overall, thus far this season, Eric Dixon's been that dude. He's been that dude. Villanova had such a large question mark on the interior, and he's answered that question and then some. So, look, Caleb Daniels makes the play of the game, and for me, it's a combo. Daniels in the Xavier game, but big picture, if I'm giving out the Alpha, I give it to Eric Dixon because I thought that coming into the season, I thought he'd be serviceable. He's been pretty doggone good.
Rob?
And then my pass the ball award would be COVID. Give up the damn ball, COVID.
Yeah. We had enough of you. It's been a year and a half. 2 years.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
F off.
Big East basketball happened, for heaven's sake.
So true. I think for me, I'm gonna bring a model of consistency here. Caleb gets my Shaq Fit Man Play of the week. It's got to be those end of the half swings are just huge, absolutely huge. That was what we needed. Made sure it was, 10-point game or so going into half. Sorry, less than a 10-point game going into half. So big for morale. Alpha Dog for me, I know Chris has a different opinion. Also going with Dixon. Dixon, the past few games especially, has been a guy who's been contributing. We've been talking about him for several games now. John, we have different observations on games, and we have some things that we talk about as it moved to a narrative status. Eric Dixon has shown enough consistency. His improvement is absolutely a narrative of the season for Villanova, and he continued that through this game. He was really one of the only things that was working in the first half today and really kept us in it and kept us alive. So he 100% gets my Alpha Dog of the week. Pass the ball award to me. I'm gonna, COVID, I think is a good take. I'm gonna highlight also one of our players, Chris Archidiakono. Look, Arch has served some role on this team. He stepped in to fill a need. Today was not his day, that's for sure. I think Jay saw the same thing. He had a good run in the first half, couple errors, and Jay kind of gave him the rope after that. And we really didn't see him in the second half. Actually saw a little bit of Jordan Longino, which is quite interesting. Hopefully, knock on wood, we see a little bit more of it. But anyway, Chris Arch gets my vote on that one.
So look, Shaq Fit Man Play of the Week. I already said it. Alpha Dog of the Week. I'm taking a different approach. Caleb Daniels. The reason why I thought Caleb was the reason that we won tonight. Sometimes, and that's necessarily looking at the box score, etc. Watching the game and as it flowed, defensively, offensively, it seemed like Caleb made big shot after big shot, got in the way defensively, constantly made important plays at important moments that shifted the tide of the game. And for that reason, he's my alpha dog. I get Eric Dixon. I'd love to give Eric Dixon the award, but I'm picking one and I'm sticking with Caleb. I agree with Rob's take on the pass the ball award of the week. John, to your point on developing depth, I think that if Jordan Longino surpasses Chris Arcidiacono on the depth chart for Villanova, that is a good sign for Villanova's depth. That's my take. That's my take there.
I agree with that take. And look, they have to figure out a way to get something going. And Brian Antoine's situation, you hope that he can give them something. I wish that we maybe saw something of Trey Patterson, but we haven't. And maybe there's got to be a reason for it. One thing I do laugh at is when people criticize Jay Wright for not playing certain guys. Like,
well, and you're laughing at us.
He's a basketball Hall of Famer. I'm not. You're allowed to question, but like we have to also at some point give the guy the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. And look,
John, we're going to bring you back for a whole separate podcast. We're going to debate just that topic for at least an hour. At least an hour.
All right. How about the rest of the Big East?
Let's look around.
How about a league that went 91-24?
Unbelievable. Look, early on the season, we lose a couple games, UCLA and Purdue, and we're sitting here and we're like, man, are we going to get these opportunities again, et cetera? The answer to the question is, yeah, we're going to get a ton of opportunities in the Big East. Let's start with your alma mater, Seton Hall, and what they've done in the out-of-conference schedule. Win away at Michigan, win at home versus Texas, a litany of other victories across the board. Seton Hall, to me, appears to be the most complete team in the conference, and in my mind, looks like a potential Sweet 16 Elite 8 type team. What do you think?
They do, and it's because of their defensive ability. They have great length. They're in top 10 in average height in college basketball. Jared Rhoden has taken the next step and has blossomed into that star. Seton Hall's had a couple of them the last couple of years. Rhoden's been that dude. Then you think about what they have at the 4 slot. Tyrese Samuel, incredibly versatile at 6'10". He's actually come off the bench at times for Kevin Willard and has been able to embrace that role. Trey Jackson, a Missouri transfer, has been very underrated for this basketball team. Then you have Alexis Yetna, who rebounds the basketball like a mini Angel Delgado. That's how well he gets out on the glass. He plays with that personality. So for me, Seton Hall is playing with toughness. They have the 7-footer Iko Biagu in there when healthy, but they don't need him to win. They still have a level of toughness and length, even with the 7-footer off the floor. But the biggest question mark for this team was what would they get from the point guard position? Bryce Aiken has brought it. In his last year of college basketball, he's hit big-time shots, and he's made big-time plays for this team. Seton Hall at the point guard position last year was an enigma. It was a huge mystery. Aiken's been a game changer, and I do think that when you look at the Pirates' big picture, if Kadari Richmond, the Syracuse transfer, keeps coming along, this team could be a second weekend team in March.
Yeah, I really like them, and I'm going to be picking them in my bracket because I love it. I expect, for whatever reason, Kevin Willard's team seemed to have like a late January, early February swoon. I always call it out as the Seton Hall team infighting portion of the schedule. But they seem to come out of that, and I love their attitude and energy come March. I think they're primed to get a really good seed based on their out of conference wins. I think they're going to continue to win in the Big East Conference, and I think they're primed to make a run in the tournament, the Big East tournament, that is, to put them in a good position to make a Sweet 16 Elite 8 run.
Sure, I agree with you guys.
I want to stick in the New York metro area and kind of a little bit of a different circumstance. St. John's, who is they giveth and they taketh away. It seems like one moment you look at St. John's, you're like, oh my God, they could beat anybody in the country. And then you look at St. John's another time and like, how does this team get past Ken Palm 200? So like, is this just a simple case of playing up and down to a competition, or is there a personnel issue that's not working out for them?
Well, I think it's a non-conference scheduling issue that didn't really prepare the team well enough in some of their marquee games. But I do think that it's a personnel problem. From game to game, you don't know what they're going to get from certain guys. And that's problematic here at this stage of the season. Offensively, it's so reliant on Champagny and Alexander that beyond that, you don't know what you're going to get from Tariq Coburn or Montez Mathis. I think that they're bigger inside, which is helpful. Joel Soriano has been a quality ad. Aaron Wheeler's given them some spurts, but not consistent. That's the thing. Like, they don't have game-to-game consistency out of their supporting cast. And when you add in 7 transfers in an offseason, this is the other side of it. That
right.
Grass is greener, not always greener for everybody involved. You know, the St. John's kids that transferred down are having troubles. So I think there's two sides to the street, guys. I think that this is a basketball team that has the potential by February to be a really good basketball team, but they don't have the body of work to show for it. So that's very problematic. They're stuck. I mean, St. John's right now has it's like kissing your sister type feel. And I don't know what that feels like, but I've heard that line before.
What an analogy, John.
I've heard that. It's kind of like, you know, like it's a weird place to be in because they probably will end up being one of the better teams, or at least I still think they could be anyways, right? Right? But then again, they might finish 8th or 9th or 10th. You don't know what you're getting from day to day with this team. And that's a problem for a team that we thought would make the tournament.
I agree. I think St. John's is a disappointing. Look, you excuse the Kansas loss, right? Kansas is obviously a top 10 opponent. You excuse that loss, even if it's at home. But they just don't look strong. Like that, I just can't put my finger on it. There's no consistency there. Like yes, you have Posh Alexander. Yes, you have Julian Champagny. But like, where is that backbone of this team that I thought I saw developing in the second half of last year? I just don't see it.
No, I don't see it either. It's not there right now. And that's a problem. You know,
should we shift gears to a team that is more consistent? Perhaps UConn also in the tri-state?
Going up 95. We're traveling up 95, John.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll go someone over them right now. It's the team that beat them this past Saturday. It's the Providence Friars who sit at 11-1. The Providence Friars are in a terrific spot right now. The only team in college basketball with 4 quadrant 1 wins.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Only team.
Texas Tech. That was a great win at home.
Yep, at Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin didn't have Johnny Davis, but still, you got to go out there and win. Kohl Center's a tough place to win at. Texas Tech, at Wisconsin, at UConn.
Yep.
And then a neutral win over Northwestern, I think, constitutes itself as a Q1 win as well. Look, this basketball team has put itself in a very nice position. And I think that when you look at what they've been able to do, they've done it because Al Durham, the Indiana transfer, has been fantastic. He's been fantastic. He's a playmaking guard. Nate Watson, we knew would be the constant, but this Providence team has a backcourt. Durham, AJ Reeves doesn't have to be the guy, so he's more comfortable there. And Ed Croswell's been a real X factor for them off the bench. So I like this Providence Friars team. They're playing Ed Cooley throwback style basketball, and it's worked.
Is this a year where Providence, you think, because here's my little bit of my issue with Providence. Every year we talk about Ed Cooley's consistent. Providence always does enough to get into the tournament. And we sit here and it's kind of always a first round exit. Is this the year Providence makes it out of that first round? Is there a chance they get to the second weekend?
I don't know if they're a second weekend team, but we had them preseason 7 in the Big East.
Right.
Them making the tournament alone is a success.
Right.
I know people want to see second weekend, but it's hard to be one of the last 16.
Yeah.
If this team wins a game, that's a big accomplishment alone. So could they win a game? Yes. Do I think they're a second weekend team? I don't think so, but I've seen crazier things happen. Remember in the tournament, random things happen. The Pac-12 had a banner year last year. Now they had some talent, but still, it's all dependent on the draw.
You don't need to tell Villanova fans that crazy things happen in the tournament. A team that lost its best player to an MCL injury last year makes the Sweet 16 and takes the first half to right in Baylor's grill, right?
Yep.
And 6 years ago, we have one of the best teams that we've ever had and can't get out of the second round versus NC State. So, the tournament can be a crapshoot in a lot of ways.
You're right. It can be a crapshoot in a lot of ways. And, I think that what we know is this: the Big East has put itself in a position where it could get 6 or 7 teams in the NCAA tournament. Villanova, UConn, Xaiver, Seton Hall, Providence. And then let's see, we'll see beyond what happens there. I mean, you have a couple of
Marquette, you look at Creighton, you look at St. John's if they get on a heater,
right.
Probably not likely.
Right. But you have a position where that you're going to get 5 and you could get 6, maybe even 7 in. That is big for this league. That Villanova's going to go. Xavier's going to go. Seton Hall. Providence. Connecticut. And then any of the Marquette, like you said, Marquette, Creighton. Look, we haven't talked about them because I know people don't talk about them, but DePaul's 9-1.
DePaul. #rank DePaul.
And they won at Louisville and they beat Rutgers. And look, Rutgers hasn't been that good. Rutgers still beat the number 1 team in the country on a given night. So it's interesting how college basketball works, but the Big East has put itself in a good spot.
John, I know we're running up on the top of the hour. What are your predictions? So you say Villanova won't drop to 3 or 4 in the conference, might be 2. What is the team that is the threat to unseed Villanova out of the one line of the Big East tournament?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that it's hard game to game to know what you're going to get offensively from them. But when they play their best game, the Connecticut Huskies are the best team in this league, in my humble opinion. But I don't think they didn't play well against Providence, and offensively they're limited.
Yep.
Seton Hall might be that team. They're tough, but they are inconsistent at times in the month of late January, early February, and so I do wonder about that. It takes such consistency to win this league. I still think Xaiver could be the team that wins the league, ironically. Even though they lost to Villanova, they showed us what they're capable of in that first half tonight. So I think there's a number of candidates, but I think that we're not going to see this picture develop until late Jan, early Feb. I think the league winner might be 14-6, 15-5. It's not going to be 16-4. It's not going to be that. I just don't think someone's going to run the gauntlet that much. So I think it'll be a mixing of those teams. It's hard, guys, because right now, still night to night, you don't know what you're going to get in this league. And it's also hard because you have right now, Seton Hall hasn't played a game in, it's going to be 2 weeks by the time this week's over. And, other teams too have either been on pause or haven't played, or it's kind of strange right now with our current times. But do I think if I were a betting man, I would still say Villanova wins the Big East. I think they just find a way.
Okay. I'll take it.
I don't know. I just don't know if there's another one of the teams that I just listed. I don't know how much I trust them over the 20-game conference schedule. But we'll see. A very big early game in this league is one next week when Seton Hall visits Providence, because Seton Hall will have not played in over 2 weeks. And they're a team that we think could win the league. But if you go to Providence, which hard place to play, you lose that game. Now you're 1-2. How many teams have started 1-2 in this conference and have won it?
Yeah. I mean, look, you go to the dunk. I mean, anything can happen. It's a different dimension. It's, the dunk has some feelings to me like Hinkle Fieldhouse does, the House of Horrors, if you will.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, look, this conference is obviously turned into an absolute slugfest in a lot of ways. It's good for the league overall. It'll result in 6 bids. I think 5 minimum, 6 bids, more likely. 5 to 7 bids in the NCAA tournament. Can teams bust out of that first weekend into the second weekend? I think is the measure of the conference, if you will, because they have plenty of bids racked up since the inception of the reorganized league. 7 or 9 years ago, but not a lot of second weekend visits. And I think that's the next step in the evolution of the conference.
Sure. That is the next step. And I think that this league could make it. Certain teams got to continue to grow. This Villanova team's going to have to show us better signs. But look, let's remember in March, if they finish against a top tier team, remember that they were right on the doorstep against Purdue and against UCLA. We say that playing those games benefits you no matter what. Will it benefit them in March if they're on the doorstep against one of the elite? Let's see if it does.
All right. I'm going to have lightning round you.
Go ahead.
Who is dark horse favorite? You're not favorite. Dark horse candidate, not to win the conference because that's a 20-game gauntlet, as you said, but to win the tournament.
Dark horse candidate. So how about this? A dark horse to me is a team outside what we think is the top 3 or 4.
Yep.
In the conference tournament.
Yep.
St. John's.
Okay.
Oof, okay.
St. John's. Let's go crazy. Maybe it's their year after all the doubters. They put it all together. They put together for 3 days, and they win it.
So next lightning round question. You've said Colin has been a step off. Maybe it's the recovery from the MCL injury, etc. Who right now is your favorite to win player of the year in the conference?
Man, that's a really hard question. I would say Jared Rhoden at Seton Hall.
Yeah.
I don't think any one player means more to their team, and Seton Hall has the best results in the conference. So best team thus far, best player, Rhoden.
Which Big East team makes the deepest run in the NCAA tournament?
Let me go out on a limb. No, I'm not. Nova. Villanova's going to figure this out. They're going to figure this out, and they're going to end up making the deepest run. I can't not try. I need to see Jay Wright turn me down. Every time I've asked Jay Wright out on a date, he said yes. So I'm going to go with Jay Wright until I'm not going to get old takes exposed over taking somebody else.
Yeah, but John, if he's going to take you on a date, he should at least wear a suit, right? Come on.
I feel like you should take a drink every time you hear somebody say he looks a lot better in suits.
Oh my God.
He does though. He does look better.
I'd run out of alcohol very quickly, John. It's rough.
It's become so much. It's become every single broadcast we hear. All right.
I kind of disagree with it too, by the way. Anyway, topic of conversation for our next pod. Chris, back to the lightning round.
Conversation for our next pod. Yeah.
I'm like just thinking out. Okay, I'm gonna bust out of the Big East for a second. Lightning round, national scene. Your top team in the country that you've seen so far.
Wow, great question.
I mean, there's some candidates. Purdue has looked amazing at times. Baylor's looked amazing at times.
Gonzaga looked amazing against us.
Duke has looked incredible at times. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I would say that the team that has performed the best that I've seen is Baylor because they've defended the best. They have 3 guards in Akinjo, Flagler, Cryer. You have what seems like an unlimited shelf of bigs, right? So Scott Drew's just formed this physical beast of a team. And they're just going to defend you for 40 minutes. If they get anything from their guard play, your night's over.
Yeah.
After that, I would say Duke because they defend they have the best player in the sport in Paolo Banchero.
Ooh.
My problem with Duke is they don't hit perimeter shots. And so in the NCAA tournament, Michigan State beat Duke a couple years ago because even though Duke had the best player involved in the game, Michigan State had the game manager in Cassius Winston and just would not let up and force Duke into perimeter shots. Baylor Duke, I have trust issues with Purdue in the NCAA tournament and still do. I think Ochai Agbaji in Kansas could be right there too. I love their makeup. I think there's a well-roundedness to it. And then Gonzaga is still Gonzaga. They stumbled a couple of times, but that's a ball club that like is still one of the 5 best teams in America. They still are to me. So with Chet and with Timmy, and they got to still figure out some more of that dynamic. But guys, Andrew Nembhard is a beast. He's a beast of a guard. He's going to charge that program. Zags will be A-okay. I'm as opposed to a lot of people who are saying it's Purdue. I'm hung up on Purdue defensively, and I just wonder if that ends up. Maybe it won't cost them at all. Maybe I'll look like an idiot, but that's my one thought, and that's where I go Baylor and Duke a little bit more. And I'm not this Dukey normally.
Yeah.
I haven't answered Duke in a long time, but I like this Duke.
Hey, look. All of your answers are legit. I mean, there's no debate. Like, you can't really sit there and be like, "Oh, you're an idiot," like
Right.
for any of these takes. In my mind, I've watched a little bit of Paolo Banchero. I am Jaden Ivey to me is just I just love the way he looks when he plays. Like has like a Ja Morantness to him that like just the way he flows through the way he like everything that he does. I just look at Ivy and I say that's a guy who's going to get a lot better, and he could be a takeover guy in March. To me, it's between Purdue or Baylor. I'm biased because I look at teams that beat like I do this every season. Any team that beat Villanova, I'm like Final Four, obviously. And that's like every time I fill out a bracket, I always get burned by a team that beat Villanova.
Yes, for sure. Look, it's either Villanova wins national title or you get burned by a team that beats them.
No question for you. Any good stories? Any final thoughts? You've now covered basketball in a year plus of COVID. Anything in particular in the last thing that sticks out in your mind of just like, well, that was weird, or that was like funny, or man, I can't imagine this happening ever again?
A great story that I do have actually came a couple weeks ago at Walsh Gym. And I was doing a game at Walsh, rather. Seton Hall was playing Division II Nyack on a Saturday afternoon. So I was looking for some material for the second half of the game. So I called Bill Raftery, and I said, because he was a Seton Hall coach, and he coached there. He coached games at Walsh. I said, so what's your best Walsh Gym story? He said to me, and this is like old school college basketball. He said, we used to take advantage of the dead spots on the hardwood floor with the 2x4s, and we would force our opponents into the spots on the floor that were the dead spots.
Oh my God.
So when they dribbled the ball, it wouldn't go up as much, and it'd go out of bounds. He goes, we won some games off forcing teams to the dead spots of the hardwood.
That's ridiculous.
I can hear Bill Raftery saying this story to you.
Yes. How crazy is that story?
Awesome.
Really nice.
I'll tell you
a pretty good referee one.
Here's another one. Day of the Big East championship game. Everybody's getting COVID tested. And if you were at the tournament, you stayed in the same hotel. It was like a bubble. Mm-hmm. So we're downstairs in the lobby, and I see Patrick Ewing. And a colleague says to Patrick, good luck tonight. And Patrick turns to us and goes, hey, this is ahead of the championship game against Creighton. Patrick turns to us and goes, we won't need luck. We're going to win. And the colleague said, well, no, Patrick, I mean, but good luck. He goes, we're going to win. That night, what they did to Creighton kind of is reminiscent of when you're watching The Water Boy and Lynn Swan is on the sidelines and Vicky Valancourt or whoever
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
"Oh no, the final score is going to be this." And Lynn goes, and she goes, "No, that's what's going to be." And
That's exactly what I thought.
that's what I was thinking of. Patrick Ewing called his shot and then won a Big East championship. Now,
That's
how
great.
cool is that?
Awesome.
How cool is that?
That is cool. It is cool. As much as I hate Georgetown, that's cool. All right, John.
Just Dan Hurley wearing his masks. It was all over the place.
All right, John. Hey, look, I appreciate it. This has been great. Like, love running through the Big East with you. Would love to have you back on later this season, talk through some of the actual results. Obviously, it's nice to talk in theory now in January, but the best part of college basketball is that we get January and February to get some freaking answers. So I'd love to have you back on once we have them. John, I say this as a Jets fan. I hope the Browns figure out a way to turn it around for you, because it pains me to watch you. It pains me to watch you in pain. And I saw your pain last night, and I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. In so many ways, that was so heartbreaking to lose that game. But thank you. Thanks, Chris. And thank you, Rob. I love joining you guys, and love being on the Full 40, and can't wait to do this again. And to Brian and Rachel and everybody out there who listens, Merry Christmas from me to all of you, Nova Nation, and happy holidays.
John, Merry Christmas to you. Be safe. You're traveling all over God's green earth. For God's sake, stay safe. But it's been a pleasure to have you on, and we really appreciate you joining us here on the Full 40. Everybody, from everybody here at the Full 40, thanks, John, for being on. Signing off for Chris and Rob. It's Chris Bellotti from the Full 40. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a very Merry Christmas. And as always, let's go Nova.